This video is brought to you by the Farmer Klein YouTube channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Farming Simulator 22 map first impressions video. Today we're going to take a look at Fjorddal. But before that, this video is brought to you by Darren Cassell and Chad Bergman. Thank you for being farm barons. So the Fjorddal map can be found at the farmingsimulator.com website or the in-game downloadable content menu. And as of the 1.0 release, this map is available for all platforms. Let me read you some of the description. You have now arrived in Fjorddal, a fictional valley in West-Norway. This map has been built with the idea of having a great view from the main farm and includes some very interesting and a little bit of unrealistic elements, such as an island, both with 2 bridges and a ferry. I've also played around with making the train go over these 2 bridges, through the chocolate factory, and even into a drivable tunnel in the mountain where there is a sellpoint. I think this makes the map quite unique. To get the ferry, you need to download the ferry pack, which is PC only. This means console players will need to use the bridges. This map has some very steep fields, just like West-Norway, and this means you need powerful vehicles to work the land and small machines to fit on the roads. I made one of the fields extremely steep, just like a ski hill, so you can really push your tractors to the limits. Most of the fields have got lots of bushes around, inspired by hedges on the British maps. This is my second map so far, and I've not created any objects. I've used Space Game buildings and prefab items. The map requires the Buildings of Norway mod. That is where the Norwegian buildings come from. There are viable plots that have been priced to suit the value of both the land and the function of the buildings that come with it. As such, some of these pieces of land are rather expensive. Most of the buildings on this land is also sellable. To use BGA, you will need to buy the BGA first, and you'll also need to buy the land that the BGA sits on in order to use the silage bunkers. On this map, you'll find the main road, small public roads, and small farm tracks, a fjord and rivers where you can fill your water tankers, several farms with fields and animal pastures, 62 viable plots of land, 82 fields with missions, several forests, and open plots of land. In fact, plot number 62, you can build out your own area. There are more than 10 sell points to take different products, a train which can be used for selling goods, several placeable productions, a BGA sawmill, 100 collectible cheese wedges, 2 view towers, and the map author is recommended. Now, these are PC mods, the more animal husbandries, because there are several farms on the map, and if you want to put down more animal pens than the limit, you will need that mod, and the ferry pack for TCBO MCE. That again is a PC only mod. Now, all players will also need the Buildings of Norway mod, which is listed as a required mod. Now, before we dive too far into the map, I do want to talk about the ferry pack for TCBO MCE. That is because this mod is not available on the Giants mod hub. The More Animal Husbandries is available on the Giants mod hub, as is the Buildings of Norway. But in order to get the ferry pack for TCBO MCE, you will need to go to a third-party site. That party site is fs-mce.eu. I will put a link to this page in the description below. And from here, you're going to be able to then download the ferry if you wish to use it to cross the water. We're going to hit downloads. It's going to take us to a share mods page. Make sure you have your pop-ups and all that enabled. So we're going to click on create download link, and we're going to have to wait 6 seconds. Once those 6 seconds elapse, we're going to get download link is ready. We have to click on that. And guess what, folks? We got to click one more time on start download. And then that will then download our mod, as you can see right here. Once we do that, we can close that tab and we're ready to go. Now, in addition to the Buildings of Norway mod, I do have the ferry mod listed here in the mod folder, and we will be showing that off a little bit during the map tour. In addition to that, we are going to be using the mods we typically use when we look at maps. That is additional field info, additional game settings, animal food overview, field lease, field calculator, precision farming, and straw harvest. If you happen to load this map up on Farm Manager or Start from Scratch, you will find all the farms are built at exactly how you see them here in New Farmer mode. The only difference is you do not own the land. You do have starting machinery in all game modes. Also, with respect to low-end systems, I had zero issues whatsoever in maintaining a solid 60 frames per second, except when I looked in this general direction. And I will tell you that the reason I had low frame rates when looking in this general direction is all of the starting machinery. So if you do have a lower power system, you may want to think about moving the starting machinery away from being all consolidated in a single place, and then your frames should bump up to a pretty good rate. Now, when I did see frame rate drops, it was dropping down in the low 50s, so it wasn't terrible, but it did drop nonetheless. Didn't have any issues anywhere else with looking on the map. Speaking of the map, let's go ahead and take a look at the PDA itself. So you've got fairly small fields on this map. This is a standard size map, and we do have all the standard crops available to us in FS22, as well as our premium expansion crops of red beets, carrots, and parsnips. Take a look at our farmland screen. You can see we start up owning farmland ID 25. That is the main starting farm, and we have that for $347,660 in any alternate game mode. Now, with respect to other farms on this map, we have many other farms available to us. We have farmland ID 61 that can be bought for $403,000. We have farmland ID 60 that can be bought for $406,000. We have farmland ID 58 that can be bought for $415,000. We have farmland ID 6 that can be bought for $426,000. We have farmland ID 7 that can be bought for $438,000. And then lastly, we have farmland ID 30 that can be bought for $421,000. We do have the BGA that can be bought here at farmland ID 42 for $440,500. This is the island that was mentioned in the description, and the ferry landing is going to be approximately in this general location. Let's go ahead and take a look at our farmland lease screen. This is going to show us all of the viable farmlands, how large those farmlands are, if those farmlands include any field or fields, what is included, then lastly, how much is that farmland going to cost us. We can now go and cross-reference that with our field calculator screen. This is going to show us the specific sizes of each particular field. As you can see, our fields range in size from less than 1 hectare in size, many being less than a half a hectare in size, all the way up to the largest field being just around 2 hectares in size. Now, with respect to our our precision farming soil map, this map is using the generic soil map. So let's go ahead and see how that is being applied to these fields. As we can see, the way these fields are set up, a lot of these fields are a single soil type or mostly a single soil type. We've got fields down here to the south that are mostly silty clay. Over here to the east, they're either silty clay or loam for the most part. And then to the north, we've got silty clay, loam, or a little bit of sandy loam mixed in. With respect to our crop counter, we are looking at the standard base game crop counter on this map. And with respect to our prices screen, we do indeed have the ability to sell all of our base game crops available to us here in FS22. In addition, our eggs, wool, and milk, and our silage, hay, straw, and grass. As we continue down through all the base game production items, we once again do indeed have the ability to sell all of our base game production items. Now, with respect to lime, we do have the ability to buy bulk lime, and we also do indeed have the ability of getting rid of our stones. With respect to our farm production pack, we do not have the ability to sell any of our washed root crops, but with respect to the platinum expansion, we do have the ability to sell some things, but not all things. So we have the ability to sell our armoire, our barrel, our bathtub. Then we also have the ability to sell our chairs, floor tiles, staircase railings. And then with the respect to our premium expansion, we do have our premium expansion crops and productions. We do not have the ability to sell separated manure. So if you do want to use pumps and hoses, you will need to put down your own sell point if you do want to use separated manure as a selling item. With respect to our straw harvest, we do have the ability to sell our hay and straw pellets, and then our premium expansion crops. We do have a very decent listing of starting machinery, given the fact that we have fairly small fields on this map. We start out with a cow barn at the main starting farm. In fact, most other farms are going to have cows at a minimum, if not also supporting other animals. We do have contracts available on this map, and we do not own any production chains at the start. This map does have 100 very smelly cheese wedges also all over the place. I mean, they are literally scattered everywhere. You should not have any issue whatsoever in finding these cheese wedges. In fact, let's go ahead and, well, let me get you started out. Right there. 99 more to go. With respect to your starting fleet, we're starting with the Case Maxim CVX 115 small tractor. We have the Valtra T255 active medium tractor, as well as John Deere 7810. We've got our Nova 330 harvester that is paired up with the PowerStream 500 header. We also then have the half pipe HP 20 trailer, the DTX 300 AR subsoiler with a Nordstein the HK25 NS 3030 seeder and Power Hero combination. We have the ZATS 3200 fertilizer spreader, as well as the FarmTech Super Cease 800 slurry tanker. We have that 4140L side mower, or trailed side mower, I should say. With a Samez Z2 840H windrower, the Boss Alpine 251 forage wagon. We have the Q4M front loader arms, and for the front loader arms, we have a pallet fork and universal bucket. Lastly, we wrap it all up with a 2300 and 1100 kilogram front weights. With respect to mods and DLCs, this map does not have any custom vehicles or implements. We do have the ferry mod enabled, and we then have access to buy the ferry, and I will basically show you how to use the ferry here in a little bit. Now, with respect to our starting farm, we have our farmhouse located up here on the hillside with our sleep trigger. Do have a dog. And down here, down below the hill a little bit, as we've already talked about, we have all of our machinery over here to our left. And then directly in front of us, we have our cow barn. We have the cow drop-off point. We're going to have a total of 60 cows in this barn. We have our slurry point. Around the side, we're going to find our milk fill trigger. And inside here, we have our dump point for our food. With respect to this farm being customizable, we can sell everything here at this particular farm. That would include these barns. That would include the fences around the barn. And the farmhouse itself. Now we've moved a little bit to the east and south a little bit to Farmland ID 30. That is where we're going to find the second farm that we're going to take a look at. This farm is fairly basic. We have another cow barn, and then we have our farmhouse located right here. And this particular farmhouse does have both a sleep trigger and a wardrobe trigger associated with it. We have the cow farm, or cow barn. So we have our milk trigger. Then on the other side of the barn, we have our dump point for our food. We have our delivery point for our cows, 65 cows in here. And then we have our slurry point. We then do have, on this side of the shed, the ability to store vehicles and implements. This farm has a nice view of the valley. That is distant scenery. Obviously, that is well off the playable boundary of the map. Now we're just going to kind of come down here in the valley to the second or the third player farm that I want to talk about. So we have now our farmhouse here. This is going to be farmland ID 61, I believe. Yes, indeed it is. And at farmland ID 61, we have a chicken pasture for 30 chickens. We have our eggs, and then we have our food trough for that. We have a small storage shed here. Then we have a sheep barn. So at our sheep barn, we have our sheep delivery point here for a total of 200 sheep. And then we have our food trough and our wool spawn point for the sheep. And that is pretty much everything here at this farm. Now, just down the lane, we do have another farm that we're going to talk about. And it's going to be farmland ID 60. And we have our sleep trigger located here at the front door. We come into a horse pasture for a total of 5 horses with our water and food. Over here we have another cow barn. So we hold 200 cows in total here. We have our food drop off. We're going to have our milk trigger there. And then our slurry point around the back. Now we do have the ability to put some smaller machinery in this storage shed. We do have kind of a small entryway there. Down the hill a little bit, we have our 4th farm we're going to look at. This is also going to be a cow farm. We have our sleep trigger at our farmhouse. We have our milk trigger here at the green doors. We will have the ability to store things up here on the upper part of the barn. Then around the back, we're going to have our slurry fill point, our food trough, and our cow drop off. 125 cows in this particular barn. We're also going to have a pig pasture outside. 30 pigs available here. We have our water and our food. We have a nice machine and implement storage building in here. Then we have an observation tower that was mentioned in the description. We can see our island over there. And we're going to pick up 2 more farms to the northwest. Now here we have both farms on farmland ID 6 and 7. First farm is going to have another cow barn associated with it. Just like the other barn that we just took a look at, this one does also have an upper level to it for implement or vehicle storage. Probably store bales up there also if you wanted to. We do have slurry around the back. We have our cow delivery point located right here. 80 cows in this building. Now this is kind of a tricky little structure. So we have our food trough here for feeding, and then we also, this whole area, as you can see on the F1 menu, is also a silage bunker. So we can come in here and tip silage in, but we do want to make sure that we do remain access to that particular dump point for our feeding of our cows. Here we have our milk point. And then we have our sleep trigger and our wardrobe trigger here at the farmhouse. Just up the lane, we're going to have our last farm we're going to look at farmland ID 6. Sleep trigger for this farm is going to be around the back of this building. Located right here. And then this is going to be a sheep production point. So we have 9 productions on this map, and this is one of them. It's the old sheep barn. So we're going to go into the barn here. And then we're going to show conveyor belt. And now at this point, we have the ability to dump our grass into here. And that is then going to convert it into silage. We're going to have our fill point here as well. So we're going to hide our conveyor. And now we can fill from our production. And we're going to be able to dump into there. That is where we're going to feed our sheep. Around the back, we're going to have our buy point for our sheep. Total of 200 sheep in here. And then we have our wool spawn point right here. That is all of the pre-placed farms on this particular map. Now, there are several areas at these farms where we will have deco elements that will remain even if we do try to sell the other buildings. So we are going to give the map just 3/4 of a point with respect to the ability to customize the player farms. So you can see we have quite the varied altitude or elevation on this map. I love these little covered bridges that we have scattered around, and you are literally going to find cheese wedges absolutely everywhere. In fact, you may have already seen a few different cheese wedges scattered around all of these particular farms. Now we made our way back here to our starting farm. We have a general point of interest. I want to go ahead and continue on flying around the map and talking about the other aspects of this particular map. We make our way up and over. There we can see where we started our second farm tour. And then we made our way around to those farms that are over there in the distance. And then we have our town down there, down by the water's edge. And then, of course, we have our island. The map did make mention of a ski slope field. That ski slope field is going to be located over here at field 31. I just want to go ahead and show you where that is just for fun, because it is the extreme of a slope for sure. So here we have the bottom of the ski slope field. And, well, that is definitely going to be a very interesting hill to take your machinery up. And then we come back here to the top. We got this old barn. Here we have those farms we talked about. The observation tower we showed off. And then down here we have one of our various sell points. So this is going to be the river spinnery. Now it is not production, it is a sell point. We also have our hotel over here to the east. Then we're going to dive into the very, very busy part of town. So here we have our hotel sell point. We have the train, and then the train is going to be going up. And this is going to be the bridge that console players or PC players who don't want to mess with the ferry are going to have to be able to navigate. This is basically a 2-lane bridge where one lane has been set open for vehicular traffic and the other is for train traffic. Hopefully you don't get taken out by the train. And then the road makes its way around here to these various fields. Now, with respect to the chocolate factory itself, all the triggers are inside, like we have grown to expect. We have the dump point that also will dump from the train. We have our interactive icon, stinky cheese everywhere, and our pallet spawn point. The train then continues on across the bridge here, and we have another second lane that we could use if we were again going to be using vehicular traffic on the bridge as opposed to using the ferry. Here we have those 2 farms that we ended our farm tour series on. They are right there. Now the train is right now through a drivable tunnel, and then there is going to be a sell point within that tunnel to sell your train goods. Down here on this side of the water, we have our fuel point. We also have our stone crusher. And then this is going to be our bakery. And we might as well go ahead and talk about the custom production that is on this map. So we have the old sheep barn, which we already talked about, which is going to take grass and make into silage. We have our sawmill, which is going to be fairly standard wood and convert that to planks and wood chips. Our grain mill is going to take flour, or it's going to take our grains and make flour from those grains. But it's also going to take canola, olive, and sunflower and produce oil for those. We're going to be able to take our grapes and convert them to raisins and grape juice, also at our grain mill. We're going to be able to bring our sugar beets and make sugar and sugar beet cut from there as well. And we're also going to be able to make cereal, butter, and cheese at our grain mill. We have a bakery. We're going to be able to make bread and cakes. We also have a cheese factory where we're going to be able to take milk and make butter and cheese. We have our chocolate factory, which again is up by on the island. We have our carpentry, wood and planks for our furniture, and then our spinnery, which is wool, cotton, and it's going to make the fabric. So this is the bakery. We have our dump point, we have our interactive point, but we really don't see marked out here where our pallets are going to spawn. Did I mention there's stinky cheese literally everywhere? Something else I want to point out is this really neat detail on this tunnel with respect to the roof of the tunnel. And here we have a sell point. This is going to be the grain mill sell point. We have our sawmill, our carpentry, and our sawmill production also now coming up down the road. So we have our wood chip point here for our sawmill. We have our wood cell trigger here and our wood cell icon. And then we're going to have our pallet spawn point. We have our carpentry interactive icon here, our wood cell point, our wood cell icon, and our spawn point for our carpentry pallets. We can see we have our BGA located right here. Now I was able to sell the BGA. I was able to sell the 3 silage bunkers, as well as this shed and the scale house. So I was able to pretty much sell everything here other than these light poles. So these light poles are going to be permanently tied to the map. They will not go away, both here and over here by the BGA. If you do want to sell this and put something down yourself, you will need to work around these various light poles. Over here we have the cheese factory. So we have an interactive icon, we have our dump point and our pallet spawn point. We have a train transfer station, so we have our dump and fill point for our trailer. And then we have our rent train trigger here. And then we have our dump and fill point for our train. Now, you may have seen, real quick, the ferry, which I went ahead and bought earlier, and that is located right here. So the ferry is designed to be hauled to the water on a flatbed, as we saw in that image on the website. And it also has a hook here, so you could pick it up and move it with a crane. I'm going to do neither for this tour. I'm going to enter, and then I'm just going to simply teleport it to the water. Presto, now we're on the water. So in order to use this ferry, we have to do a couple things. One, we have to unfold it. So we're going to hit X, and then our transportation kind of braces are left away. We're going to then open the cover, which is going to get rid of the frame here for the crane. And now we can just drive our ferry around. Now I do want to maybe kill the illusion a little bit. This ferry is not floating. This ferry is basically making use of some invisible wheels. And that's how it moves around. It's basically driving around on the bottom of the lake. We will be able to come up here to our ferry landing. Something we don't know is how will the ferry work in FS25. Will it work on this premise, or will it actually float on some sort of water plane? And when we come up here to the ferry landing, we're going to left click and go up and down, or left and right. And that's going to be depending on which side is going to raise and lower these ramps. Then we're going to right click up and down, or left and right. And that's going to raise and lower these gates. And we can drive our vehicle on top of here. We can strap it down with these strap hooks, and then drive it over to the other landing over at the island. And again, the ferry is a PC only mod, linked down in the description below. So we have our ferry landing. We've already talked about our sawmill. We've talked about the BGA. We've kind of looped around to our vehicle dealer. We have our farmer's market. Here we have our animal dealer. Again, with the stinky cheese. I'm not trying to point these out. They're just literally everywhere. We have our bale sell point down here at the animal dealer. Another sell point here as well. Then this is going to be where our grain mill is located. So we have our dump point for our grain mill. We have our interactive icon for our grain mill. And we're going to have our pallet spawn point below here in the bottom. Now, while this is not marked out, this is where our pallets will be spawning. This is going to be our spinnery. So we have our pallet spawn point, we have our dump point, and our interactive point there. We have a sell point located here. This is going to be kind of our grocery sell point. We have the train transfer silo. And then again, we're going to come back here to our vehicle shop. We saw where our vehicles are going to spawn in at over here, so we have a very large area for our vehicles to spawn in. Our dealer maintenance trigger is located right here. We do have a usable forklift at the dealer. And then we have our dealer trigger over here at this corner of the building. And I'm not going to go ahead and buy anything because we already saw where the ferry spawns in. And that is pretty much the entirety of this particular map. Now, with respect to our scoring, we are going to be giving the map a full point with respect to production being built in or areas set aside for such, because we have 9 productions built into this map. We are going to give the map a full point with respect to the ability to sell all our basic crops, production items, and animal outputs, because we do indeed have the ability to do all of that. We do have the ability to sell our lime, we do our buy lime, we do have the ability to sell our stones as well. Something I just wanted to point out to you is that our utility poles here do appear to have collisions, so you will need to also work around those. Customization of the farms. While we can sell most of the things at these farms, there are various deco elements that are going to remain at many of these various farms, so we are going to give map just 3/4 of a point. Buildings where appropriately are using a new texturing technique. It's a mix and a match. I'm going to give the map 3/4 of a point. What the hey? And with respect to trigger and interactive areas being clearly marked, there's a couple areas that are not clearly marked as far as where pallets are going to spawn. So we're going to take 1/4 of a point off there. That's going to wrap this whole thing up with a nice little bow at 4.25 out of 5. I'd love to know what you all think of this particular map. Are you into kind of this Norwegian vibe? Not a lot of forestry. I was expecting a bit more forestry on this map. Basically, just looking at the PDA, I was really expecting this to be a fairly heavily forested map. I think maybe the map author went a little bit light on the forestry just for the sake of making it run well for consoles. Here we have our second observation tower. Once again, it's going to give us a really good view all around. And until next time, happy farming.